This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. Ahoy! Captain David Gallimore welcomes you aboard the Regenerate Show, live Mondays, 10 a.m. Pacific on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com. We dive into the real messy work of transforming our lives, leadership, and organizations. Bring your hot mess and confusion. Leave with clarity, courage, and confidence. Together, let's strengthen our resilience, accelerating the health of ourselves, people, planet, and profits. Now, here's your host, Captain Dave, your personal regenerator. All aboard!
Ahoy! I am so excited to welcome you to the third episode of Regenerate. Our theme today is breaking through your GAILs. Have you ever been really stuck? For example, you're a leader and you have a team or yourself who's just unable to make a change as quickly as you would like or deliver something really important to you. You've tried everything you can think of and you're still stuck. Well, my guest is Cathryn Baker. And in addition to sharing her own messy middle transformation story, she's going to give a masterclass on how to get unstuck by identifying and breaking through your GAILs to help you move forward to experience your unlived life. I love that, unlived life. And later in our show, you'll get to experience the power of her approach as she guides me. I know I'm a full-time trainable person to break through my next GAIL, especially when selling myself to my ideal clients, those purpose-driven founders who are leading regenerative companies and who need help to scale faster their business for good. Our show's promise, if you've been with us before, you'll know it's to have fun, because if we're laughing, we're learning. Number 2 is to leave you inspired, and 3, to leave you empowered. And with that in mind, consider grabbing some paper and a pen to maybe capture a few notes or next action, because transformations happen here. So it's a privilege to introduce you to Cathryn. She's been a serial entrepreneur for over 35 years. I think she started when she was 12. She founded and successfully exited 2 staffing firms. So a serial entrepreneur who's had wins. I think that's always helpful to realize somebody who's going through their own messy middle and has success can be quite inspirational as she's been to me. Today, she's co-founder of Avanzara. I hope I got the syllable in the right place. And she's focused on coaching and consulting that truly empowers businesses and individuals to reach their full potential. I first met Cathryn as a fellow student. We were on a workshop over the course of about 6 weeks, overcoming our own limiting beliefs about posting to social media, especially when there's no response or limited response, and you keep going, is it really worth it? I was attracted to her character, her heart, and her wisdom. And since then, we've been actively collaborating on designing and delivering experiential workshops and masterclasses, helping leaders and their teams get unstuck. Please welcome to our show, my dear friend, Cathryn Baker.
Thank you. Wow. Sounds so exciting. I can't wait to hear it. Oh, wait, it's us talking, right? So
That's right. That's right. So you've been on podcasts before, you know the process, but what's different about this particular show is the opportunity to really be authentic and vulnerable about who you are and where you're in your own messy middle of transformation. And so just to get the fun started, what's that one thing you love to be or do that gives you the most joy in your life?
Oh, the one thing, there's so many, but related to what I'm doing now, the one thing is, this might sound corny, but it's to help somebody break through with a GAIL. It truly is. That's so during the coaching process, and not all sessions are different because everybody's different and at a different place, even the same person, one week from the next. But that brings me true joy to see, you can almost see it physically, that they broke through and figured out, oh, that's what I need to do to take the next step I've been wanting to take for 20 years.
So you've really made your work your play and what you love. So you're living what I like to call your ikigai, your reason for being.
Yeah.
And after watching one of your LinkedIn videos where you were using a reciprocating saw, which frankly
Oh.
scares the heck out of me, even more than a chainsaw, because
Yes.
chainsaw, it's got a little bit more heft to it.
Heft.
And
Yeah.
you wear a helmet and, goggles and, to do a chainsaw safely, there's some gear. But when you're getting a reciprocating saw, you just kind of grab the saw, battery powered or, electrical powered. And that thing can really cut.
It has
things.
a little bit of kick. Yeah.
You did great. I love how you showed your listeners, your LinkedIn audience, how you're exploring these new things.
Yeah.
So speaking of exploring, I mean, when you think about you before you founded two staffing companies, before Avanzara, what were maybe some of those life experiences that forged you into becoming the person you've become so far? So
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah. What's your origin? 5 minutes on that?
5 minutes. Yeah. That's I started my first company when I was 29 years old. So, but a couple of key things, actually, the one big key thing that happened is that I lost my husband at 28 years old. And it was very sudden. And at the time, I had a 4-year-old, and then I was pregnant with our second daughter. So that really does go as a pivotal time in my life, of course, because, well, for many obvious reasons, but also I felt hopeless. I felt hopeless for the first time, really probably the only time in my life. I thought, well, yeah, I had no idea what I was going to do. We didn't have a lot of money. I was pretty alone down there in El Paso. Just had I didn't have a direction. And I wasn't used to that even in my young life. So that really shaped me and prepared me for the next phase of my life. So I looked at it like that first part all the way up going through college, growing up and learning the ropes of being an adult and starting a family. And then the next, so that was act 1. And then act 2 was after my husband died. And I really had to get it together. And it took...
This adulting thing, it's so difficult times.
It's overrated. Sometimes I feel like an adult when I do my taxes, like, look at me, I did my taxes. But yeah, I did. So in entering that second phase and not knowing, I had a psychology degree, I had no business experience. I did speak Spanish and I was down there in El Paso, but really I had no idea about staffing. I didn't know anything, but I met a woman who did. And so we took the leap of faith, and she said we should start a staffing company. And this was back in 1986. And so 2 women, we did exactly that. And it shaped, of course, the rest of my life. But you don't know that at the time, thank God, because I think if I had really thought about it, it probably would have scared me off, just like it does. If you really think about having kids or getting married, you'd never do it because it's so scary. But yeah, so that was the one big, I think everybody has some impact that moves them to, wherever their path goes. And thankfully, it's not always somebody, dying, but often it's traumatic to that individual. So that was my path.
Yeah. Wow. So to your credit, you found your courage, right? It's not the absence of fear. It's because of the fear. You just show up the best you can anyway. And doesn't that give you this sense of, okay, I can problem solve. I can, find somebody to support me. You found a partner.
I did.
And, what a great testimonial to the power of resilience and finding a way. Now, the transition, if I may, on the origin story theme, a little bit longer, the current role that you have, going from kind of entrepreneur, leader, growing a business, selling the business a couple times. What was the catalyst to get into this hybrid executive coaching and consulting?
It's my favorite story to tell. Yes, I sold 2 of my companies, and the second one I stayed on contractually at first because of the terms of the sale agreement. And then I stayed, so it was a total of 5 years, still in the same role of managing a couple of offices. And I was treated great by the people who bought my company. They were friends, they still are. But I didn't know it at the time, but my confidence and the feeling of being relevant, all that started to go. And I think part of it was I didn't have the identity of owning a business, even though I still did the same thing. It wasn't the same. And it's all I really knew. I owned my own business for 37 years. So I think it was partly that. It was partly the aging process. I was getting older, and I mean, everybody does. And guess what? I still am getting older.
What?
Yeah,
No.
I know it does. I know I can't tell, but
I'm looking for that Benjamin Button. I don't know if you remember that movie where
yes.
Brad Pitt got younger and younger over
I'd
time.
love that. No, I wouldn't. I never want to be 30 again. But anyway, the boredom set in. There were all sorts of things, but it was slow, and so I didn't really realize it. So fast forward to my good friends buying the ranch where I am right now. They bought this ranch and they said, "Come see it." We did. My husband and I came to see it. And I had a transformational experience just walking into this house. You see the hill country, it's big space. I loved everything about it. They hated it. So there was a conversation like, said, well, what are you going to do? If you sell it, tell us. But no, we didn't know. We came again. We stayed overnight on air mattresses. We all did. And it was after that trip, my friend, who was a brilliant business person, she sent me a text that said, "Your unlived life is waiting for you." And I went, when I thought, what does that even mean? And I wrote it down on a block of wood.
The truth of it.
The truth. And I looked at that every day. And it took about 5 months I looked at it every day. And in that 5 months, I quit my job. We sold our paid for house, left our comfortable, easy life and friends, and moved to the ranch. And I started a coaching and consulting company, not even understanding what a coach did, but knowing inside. And you know this too, David. We've been coaches our whole lives. But so I did go and went through a certification program like you did, and it was very intense. But at the time that I made that decision, I really did not know. And that was a leap of faith, I think, to what you said before, to your point, that I just had to do it. And I didn't overthink it. And that for me, that was the right thing to do. If I overthink stuff too much, I'll never do anything. I really won't. I won't leave the house. I'll never get out of bed. So I had to forge ahead and do that. But the catalyst was a text from my friend. Your unlived life is waiting for you. This is my unlived life, and I didn't even know it.
Do you mind giving a shout out to your friend by name?
Her name is Sue Marks. Brilliant. She's my business partner. She started several staffing companies also, much bigger than mine. And she's definitely a serial entrepreneur, and so much wisdom. And yet here we both are on this ranch. We're city slickers. Not anymore. She's tough. She's tougher than I thought. And hopefully I'm tougher than she thought too, but
yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I just feel so inspired by your story and the fact that your husband, Ray, and you are doing this together. I know my wife, Margaret, just celebrated 35 years of marriage. She's my best friend, my soulmate. She's a fellow explorer and adventurer. And, doing the ranch thing would be quite challenging if, Ray was, you could see the black heel marks in front of the stable.
Oh, that's a very good point. And actually, this was way more his dream than mine. He always wanted land. This was never on my radar. The town, and I've mentioned this to you before, David, the town that we live near, we're not in any town, doesn't even have a stoplight. There is a yellow caution light at one of the two intersections, but and there's no grocery store. It's very different. It was like, it would be hard to be more different, really, than from whence I came. So, but yeah, you're right. The partnership with Ray and I, man, we had to be in this together, and I wavered a couple times. There was a couple times I was in complete overwhelm, mostly with the physical moving. When you've been in one place for 40 years, it ain't fun. And, I couldn't see a way out. And he said, we did it. He said, let's start here. And that's what we did. So I needed that support.
Well, I hope our listeners realize that these kinds of big life pivots, they're not clean. They're messy. Thankfully, they're usually not like Groundhog Day, where you're reliving or the boxing, the Swedish death cleanse, and then the move, and then the unboxing. Thankfully, you don't have to do that over and over again.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
So time is never our friend. We're already 18 minutes in.
Oh gosh.
I really want to help our listeners understand this GAILS process. I purposely did not provide the answer to what does GAILS stand for. So would you be willing to share with us briefly how you discovered this process or created this process and what it means?
Sure. I didn't discover it. I learned it in my coaching training through IPEC. And it's an acronym for blocks that get in our way of doing things we really want to do. And we all carry them. And it's important to know that they can be transformed. As we've worked through some of them together. So the G stands for gremlin. That's kind of my favorite. That's that inner critic that sits on your shoulder. That's how I visualize it. It can be anywhere.
That's where mine sits.
Does yours sit there? Yeah. Mine's on
right
my
there.
left shoulder. And it's good to name them if you find that useful. Mine's Brenda, and it's that negative self-talk. And so everybody has it. And it's not until you talk about it sometimes that you realize even extremely successful people, athletes, but brilliant business people, we all have it. But naming the gremlin often and talking to the gremlin. So I do speak to Brenda, sometimes even out loud, and tell her.
And listeners, I assure you, she's not multi-personality. This is okay. Having a conversation with your gremlin.
So if you see me walking around mumbling to myself, it's Brenda that I'm speaking to. Yes, I don't have multi-personalities, but so that's the G. The A is assumptions. And that is, you're assuming that something that happened in the past is going to repeat itself just because it happened. So like, for example, I might say, well, I tried to play golf once, which is true. I've tried several times and I was terrible, so I can't play golf. That's my assumption. And is that the truth? Maybe, maybe not. But the assumption is in the way of me saying, I'm going to take golf lessons and, maybe I can play golf. I had that when we moved to the ranch. There's big equipment here and we have a tractor. We have like a real life tractor with things that you drag behind, depending on what you want to do. And Sue said, you want to drive it and drag this path. We're making the paths on the ranch. And I started to say no on the go. And I said, yes. And I did it. I drug a path for an hour and it's still here now. And I didn't knock anything down. I did it. But I had an assumption that I'm not very good at driving big equipment. Why I thought that, I've never driven a tractor before, but so that's the A. It stands for interpretations. And that's the story we tell ourselves about something, whether it's true or not. And often it's not true. And I use the example that I think I told you, David, that when our children were younger and we would go to family events or social events, a lot of times afterwards, one or two of them, we have four, would say, were you mad at me? And I said, no, why? The way you were looking at me. And I'm like, no, I mean, they were interpreting. First of all, I probably wasn't even looking at them. And I'm sure I was thinking something like, I wonder if I have time to do laundry when I get back home or so, something like that. But they were interpreting, and it was their truth, that I was mad at them. So, and the L is limiting beliefs. That's just a global rule or a rule that we think, is true, whether it is or not. Good example of that is women aren't good in tech. That is, or women aren't good leaders. They're not strong enough. That would be a limiting belief that could really get in the way of a woman wanting to pursue a career in tech, or hold a woman back from working her way up to the C-suite because she thinks, well, I won't make it up there. I won't be strong enough. I won't be enough. So those are all the things. It's a label for really, though, all of those blocks that get in your way of doing what you want to do.
It is such a simple but not easy framework. And before the break, in a couple minutes, is there a favorite quick story of a client? You don't need to name their name, but where they were really blocked. One or more of those GAILs was really in their face, and how you helped them.
Yeah, there was one gentleman who was in a pretty high level position, but he was unhappy. He had worked his way up to where he thought he wanted to be, and he didn't know why he was unhappy. And it turns out he had lots of blocks. He had blocks with, there was a big conflict between his family time and him, and he wasn't putting enough importance in his mind for that. And so he had really a limiting belief that the family didn't need him that much and that the wife could handle everything and she couldn't. That was probably the biggest one. But also he doubted his leadership abilities. He was in a leadership position, but he wasn't really leading because he didn't think he was good enough. He didn't think he didn't trust his instincts. That was really what it came down to. He didn't trust his gut. So he was holding back. Does that make sense?
We're going to It does. And we're going to continue this conversation after our little commercial break. If you're receiving, folks, useful insights from our conversation, I invite you to join my Regenerate community on Substack, labeled Regeneration in Real Life, where I'm able to go even deeper with my guests, like Cathryn, on the themes you've heard on this show. We'll be right back after this valuable offer. Please stay tuned for more of Cathryn Baker's brilliance.
You're listening to Regenerate with Captain Dave, your personal regenerator on K4HD Radio. We'll be right back. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you ready to regenerate and live the life of your dreams? Start the transformation now. Call Captain Dave at 253-237-2558. Stop overthinking. Again, call 253-237-2558 or go to regenerativeworldgroup.com to book a free, no-obligation clarity call. Let's get back to Regenerate right here on K4HD Radio for more life-changing transformations. Here's your host, Captain Dave, your personal regenerator.
Welcome back. If you're just now joining, I've been speaking with my dear friend, Cathryn Baker, founder of Avanzara, a coaching and consulting firm that empowers businesses and individuals to reach their full potential. And our theme today is breaking through your GAILs. Cathryn, you mentioned this client, a gentleman who, may I call it a bevy of GAILs, just kind of like an onion, just layer after layer of GAILs. And once you helped him break through one, then guess what? There's often another one right on the next layer. And so part of what you do, I think so well, you've done it for me, and we're going to get to test drive that again today live, is how well you diagnose where people are blocked. Do you want to just talk a little bit about how you help a client like that gentleman, where to begin this identification of gremlins? Do you start always there? Do you sometimes start with limiting beliefs with the client? How do you start?
Oh, it doesn't start at any one place. That's a very good question. Because, you start out a coaching session with asking what the person wants to talk about. And when they're doing that, the coach, me, I am listening for clues and for patterns, things that they keep saying, or their energy level. I really look at that. And then, so when they pick something they want to talk about, and in this case, this gentleman, he started out he wasn't happy in his job and he didn't know why. So asking questions, open-ended questions, and really listening for those patterns and clues. Often people won't name what the real issue is until you dig deeper. In fact, I guess I can't say always, but it's very rare to, just like, in business, you're not going to get to the root cause by asking one question. You have to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. So, and then I can identify. So in the case with this gentleman, he basically didn't feel like he deserved to be in his position. He was in a leadership position, but he didn't trust his instincts and all that. So he had it all. I mean, he definitely had a gremlin speaking to him during situations where he felt like, well, maybe he wasn't saying the right thing, or, even though he knew his industry, but that gremlin still talked to him. I think he definitely had assumptions about how other people perceived him. He thought people perceived him as like a know-it-all instead of teaching or mentoring. He thought he came across as too know-it-all or cut and dried, and so, but
Isn't that fascinating? A
yeah,
guy that doesn't think he's good enough masks or camouflages by trying to be the smartest guy in the room.
yep, which maybe he was, but then he wasn't even comfortable with that because, he was making assumptions and then, of course, interpreting other people's reactions. And that to me is one of the, I guess dangerous might not be the right word, but interpretations can really mess things up because you don't know. I don't know what you're thinking right now. I don't, and the only way I can really know is to ask you. And then you have to tell me the truth. So you see how dangerous it can be to interpret. So we get to when you get to that point, in the coaching, that's where we work on why are you interpreting and how can you reframe that? And often it's a habit. It's a habit to interpret. I do that, or I make assumptions big time. Meet somebody for the first time, we all do. In 5 seconds, we've pegged them. And, but that can be a very dangerous way to think. So you can break that habit and keep your mind open and reserve judgment. At least put the judgment aside, for a little while. That's what we did. That's what I did with this gentleman.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about really asking good questions and listening deeply, what's being said, also what's not being said. In your experience, Cathryn, this GAILS process, if I can call it that, of identifying and breaking through each of these GAILs, or a hairball, if you know cat hairball.
Yes, I do.
Hairball of GAILs where you pull a thread out at a time. Is that something that you think you could do yourself? I can't. Do you think this is where a coach, an external third party, relatively objective third party, really can add so much more value?
100%. You can, yes. I mean, that's why we coaches have coaches. I don't know a coach who doesn't have a coach, right? And you think, well, I know the process, I know the model, but no, somebody needs to be talking to you. A good coach will ask the right questions and then shut up and listen. And then, hybrid coaching does give advice or, insights, I guess is probably a better word, but no, you can't. I don't think you can do it yourself. You can try. And I tell my gremlin to go away. The thing is now I know, and you have those skills too, to recognize when we're making assumptions or interpretations or the gremlin's talking, but we still need help in finding out where's that coming from? What's the truth? What is my truth? That type of thing.
Yeah. In my own situation, I don't know if you can relate to this, but in many ways, when I'm in stress, when, for example, a client is ghosting me, or I've sent out a bunch of LinkedIn postings and nobody seems to even acknowledge that
crickets.
I've sent anything out. It's a faith-based position, as you know well. That it's really a challenge to figure out, where is that GAIL? How does it maybe trigger my 10-year-old boy? So many of the gremlins, especially, can come from parents that they themselves were doing the best job that they could, but sometimes they were going through their own stuff. And so part of our work, I think, as coaches, is to help our clients either through our own coaching or maybe advising them to seek out a professional therapist or hypnotherapist or somebody who can help them process their 10-year-old girl or their 10-year-old boy who's getting triggered at 64, in my case.
Yeah.
And realizing that that's just a story that I've brought into the present because I never really dealt with it, the emotions the shame, the wound in the past. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think you bring up something very important too, and that's the difference between coaching and therapy. But absolutely, exploring these scales could bring up, I mean, there's reasons why we do everything, and many of them are very deep seated.
Yeah.
Coaching isn't, by definition, moves forward. It does, of course, take things that happen in your past into consideration, but that's a big differentiation between coaching and therapy. Is that so? If this does not happen to me, but I know coaches where it has. If you get into some of these scales and it's so deep that the coach, we have an ethical responsibility to recognize that it's beyond coaching and it needs therapy. So, and at that time, then that's a therapeutic, referral. But that has not happened to me. But so it's not to say we don't explore all of that, because we're shaped, and well, by the time we're 12, I think those things are pretty ingrained. But it does help. Like you made a mention of, your 10-year-old boy. It does help to say that out loud, to say, that's my 10-year-old boy talking. That's the story from him. That's not my story now at age 64. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Mathieu Graham, who was our first guest on Regenerate, he really helped me with this notion of when a gremlin is on my left shoulder and yelling in my ear saying, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? You haven't got enough credentials. Who's going to want to read what you have to write? He said, pause, breathe, let the emotion kind of come up, kind of like a cloud. Could be a black cloud that's drifting across the sun. And to be then curious, because you can't be both fearful and curious, or in my case, triggered and emotionally spinning up. No, probably spinning down.
Yeah.
But the emotions are building up, but the spiraling into a negative state. And that has been groundbreaking for me. I offer that to our listeners, to pause, breathe, be curious, and sometimes just let the emotions be what they are. And then, like a cloud, just let it go. Just let it go.
Wow. That is groundbreaking. And it's important what you said about let the emotion, or what Batu said. Because so many people, what they do, their coping mechanism is to stuff the emotion down.
Yes.
Right? And it's like,
and guess what? It gets to bubble up again at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, until like 58.
And then you blow.
Well, no. So then I would blow each of those decades. But, having then the courage to say, wow, this is a cycle. This is a pattern. Right. I am sick and tired of that gremlin on my shoulder.
100%.
Yeah. Well, in this next and final third of our chat today, so fun. I just love being with you. We were going to spend about 10 minutes or so and have you guide me through my next breakthrough of one of my layers of GAILs, and specifically selling myself to my ideal clients, those purpose-driven founders who are leading sustainable, regenerative companies and who need help to scale faster so that they can scale their impact in the world. And just full disclosure, listeners, I have not said any more than this to Cathryn. We're not, this is not scripted. This is live in the wild. Have no idea where this is going to go. There might be a few tears displayed. So I am your client for the next 10 minutes.
Okay. So tell me, David, just a little bit more about this, why this feels heavy to you.
Yeah. So having had, a lot of success, I would say over the last 4 years, when I kicked my corporate crazy to the curb and left Gemini and solopreneur, and doing the inner work, like what I mentioned before with Mathieu around identity. I still am reluctant to pick up the phone and call like Paul Hawken, who's written a number of books on sustainability and regenerative thinking. He runs a company related to regeneration. And what's heavy for me is I think I don't have IBM or Boeing or Capgemini brand behind me. It's just little old Dave. And why would he be interested in talking with me? And I want to approach that relationship as a peer rather than as a fanboy or somebody who's just, hoping, right? Hope is not a strategy.
Mm-mm. Well, you're not alone in that. And I'm certain you know that it's very common for people that have had the success that you had with big companies behind you. And then all of a sudden, there you are, the Dave Show. And so what you're feeling is poof. So I am curious, what is your gremlin telling you when you're sitting there ready to pick up the phone and not doing it?
So if I can be so bold as to redirect you just a little bit, I think it's more of a limiting belief because I don't even pick up the phone or want to pick up the phone. I want to get another credential. I want to do some more coaching with companies that maybe not as critical to improving the health of our people and planet and profits. So I'm still thinking I need training wheels. I need to work with smaller firms, less critical firms, so that then I'm really ready. I typically am a credential guy, and want to be able to have some case studies, some proof points before I then feel confident to go after the bigger opportunities.
So you're feeling, tell me if this is a correct interpretation of that, but that you're not ready enough. You're not credentialed enough. You don't have what it takes to do business with the type of company you want to do business with.
Yeah. And I think the why, if we were to ask the 5 whys and we kept asking why, I think it's still, I've got another several layers of the I'm not enough. I grew up in a family where my aeronautical engineering dad, brilliant, my mathematician, programmer mother, pioneer in both disciplines in the 50s, mother. And then there's little old me, not very logical, not good at math, more of an artistic temperament, playing the piano, playing sports. Less logic. I think I said that, less logical, and not necessarily feeling accepted by this pretty intense couple parents who back in the 60s, when I grew up, they treated my sister and I as kind of a lump of clay to be molded and shaped, as opposed to what Margaret and I are doing with our children. We're more stewards of the land. We're there to help meet them where they are. So I've been unpacking, all of that.
So you grew up with these two brilliant people. What got you through your decades of successful career?
Never disappointing authority figures like my parents. So was really, really good at doing whatever it took to anticipate, avoid conflict by, meeting them where they were. I was an overachiever. I worked all the time. So your typical type A personality, never wanting to disappoint, oldest kid. Yeah. And I became a junkie for recognition. I won all the awards in elementary school, middle school, high school. Didn't do so well in college. I finally realized there were people that were way more accomplished than I was, but it did keep me inspired to keep achieving. But Jed talked about that when we had that conversation about what drives type A's, high performers, often is to fill a wound or fill a gap in their psyche. That was certainly me.
So what you said, and thank you for sharing that. You said you thought this was a limiting belief. What's the truth that you think is the limiting belief?
So you're asking the truth of why I think the limiting belief is the truth for my
Right.
Gail? Is that what?
Right.
Yeah. Well, my understanding of limiting beliefs is that, you know, I don't know enough. Why even try? That fits that category better than maybe a gremlin where you're, hey, don't be so stupid, or hey, who do you think you are? This is a bit of a hairball for me, the difference between the gremlin and the limiting belief, because
They're very, they're all entwined. A hairball is a great analogy because they
Yeah.
are all entwined. But a limiting belief, it's global truths that a global belief rules. So maybe you think, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth with that. So what, thinking that this global rule that you see yourself and you're believing that to be true about you.
So based on that better definition, now that I've heard that again, I think it's more of a gremlin that's really the Gail.
I kind of do too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the strategy that I shared with you that I learned from Mathieu is probably the most helpful strategy to address a Gail, a gremlin. Do you have others that would help our audience? And then we need to wind down, sadly. And
I do. I know, sadly, because we're just scratching.
I hope you'll come back and we'll pick this up at some point. Yeah.
We definitely
But is there
will.
another strategy that you've used with clients to help them kind of manage the Gail, manage the gremlin?
Absolutely. When we identify the gremlin, and in your case, of course, it's just saying, you don't have enough credentials, you don't have enough certifications, you need to be more ready, is to look at each one and say, well, how true is it? I've been asked that as a client. So David, how true is it that you need more credentials in order to help the customers you want to help? How true is that?
I think in the moment right now, I have more than enough credentials to help Paul Hawken or Laura Storm or anybody else who's leading regenerative businesses.
Right. And that question to ask yourself, and I agree 100%, of course, with you, but that question to ask, how true is this really? When my gremlin says, you don't know enough to consult with, a staffing company. And I say, so you talk back to your gremlin, really? Is that true? I was 37 years, I started 2 staffing companies. I can't think of something I don't know about the staffing industry. So when you question the gremlin and ask about the truth, is it true for you? Is it the truth? That really helps. And it can do it. And you can do that quickly. When you're sitting there, you want to pick up that phone or you want to do that email, just say, wait a minute. I've got decades of experience working with all these huge companies. It's not true that I need one more certification. They can't wait to talk to me. So it's a reframe with your gremlin.
Yeah. Thank you. So we're down to 1 minute.
Oh,
Time is never our friend. So how can people learn more about you, your work, or make contact with you?
The best place will be on LinkedIn. I'm redoing my website, as you know. I'm really excited. So LinkedIn, it's Cathryn Baker. You can look me up, or you could, the DM, that's really the best place, David, for them to get a hold of me. And of course, I'd love to. I'm going to continue to work with you. So we have all sorts of cool things coming down the pipeline.
Awesome. Well, I'm so grateful to have you as our third guest on the Regenerate Show, and I hope that you'll come back. Our next guest is Chris Rue. Next week, we'll be chatting about organizational transformation, and specifically organizational and leadership transformation in next generation organizations. I hope you had fun today. I know I laughed, I learned. Thank you. I hope you were inspired. I hope you feel empowered. And on behalf of Cathryn and our entire Talk4 Media team, consider that one priceless and essential insight or tool that you learned from this show that you'd be willing to apply today. Again, stay healthy, stay safe. We need you. See you next week. We're better together.
Thank you for listening to Regenerate with Captain Dave on K4HD Radio. We invite you to give yourself grace and embrace the messy middle. See you every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Until then, you got this.